Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be working on day 2 of my December daily album. We are starting out with a pattern paper cut to 10 by 11 inches, which is roughly the size of the page protectors in the 10 by 8 album from Ali Edwards that I'm using this year. And we're starting with the 2 other pieces of pattern paper that are cut on my table. Each of those is cut to 5.5 by 8. And we're going to make them flaps that open up, and so we are doing that by putting a 1/2 inch score on each side of them. And I used my paper trimmer to make the score line because for the life of me I can't remember where I put my large scoring board, but I can just use the line on the paper trimmer with my Teflon bone folder to make the to make a straight score line, and it works fine. And because what's going under these flaps isn't going to be perfectly flat, I do go back in and add in an additional score line just to add a slight gusset so that it doesn't look bulgy with any embellishments or any additional paper or photos that are underneath those flaps. And once we have those additional score lines placed in, we are just going to go ahead and place some score tape on the flaps, and then once I pull the backing off of the score tape, I just put down a small line of wet glue on top of it. It both adds a little bit of strength as far as adhesion, and it gives me a little bit of wiggle time when I place it down, so I could try to get it as straight as possible without having to keep trying to pull the tape up off of the page. And as I'm fiddling with the panels trying to get a placement that I like, I'll just put up a hashtag on the screen, which is what I use on Instagram to kind of catalog all my December daily posts, just in case you want to follow along over there as well. And once we have our flap secured down, I'm just going to bring over my printed journaling just to get an idea of size as far as how much I want to trim off the printout. And the journaling is printed on a laser printer again. But this time I did go ahead and use the Heidi Swap white mink foil to foil the text to get the white print. And then the trimmed down journaling, we can just go ahead and adhere directly to the pattern paper. And with the structure and base of our page already constructed, we can go ahead and move on to photos and embellishments, which are probably most people's favorite part. And the story for today is the story of us going to get our tree. And the 3 pictures that we'll be using today are the tree tied to the top of our car, our 2 dogs in front of the tree lot stand, and Paul and Oreo. So I'm just going to pull in some 6x6 pattern paper sheets just to use as photo mats for our pictures. And all of the pattern paper and most of the embellishments that I use in this video are from the Christmas Farmhouse collection from Carta Bella, which I don't think it was last year's, it might have been the year before, but it may still be available. But Carta Bella also does printables as well, so that's always an option. So I'm moving the pictures around on the pattern paper just to get an idea of how I want the photos to be matted. And I'm not really loving the red pattern paper, but I really like the white poinsettia pattern that's on the back of it, so I still want to use it. So I decide that I'm just going to be a little precious with the wood pattern paper. So after I mat these photos, I'm intentionally matting them off to the side and using the photo to cover the hole that usually comes in the 6x6 paper pads that are usually stored in the store by hanging. And then I'm going to use the strips that I cut off of the other sheets for the other mats to kind of create an extra wood pattern mat on top of the red pattern that I'm not in love with. But before I adhere down the wood pattern paper strips, I am going to glue down these little metal discs, since I do plan on using magnets to act as a closure for my flaps. And another benefit of doing it this way is that gluing the little disc in between 2 pieces of pattern paper before laying the photo on top of it helps to hide the indents from the little metal circles. And once we have our photo adhered down and all the excess pattern paper trimmed off, then that takes care of our photos, which leaves us to work on the embellishments. Since this is going to be the first photo that is seen on the layout for this day, I definitely did want to go ahead and add an embellishment and probably the number for the day on here on this photo. So I'm looking through the different felt trees that were part of Ali Edwards' December daily collection for this year, for 2021. And for the number 2, I am using a Tim Holtz countdown brad from his Ideology collection from last year. And then I used an X-Acto blade to go ahead and kind of cut a little slit in the middle of the felt so I could get the legs of the brad through there. And then I used a little bit of red line tape to secure the whole thing down to the photo. So with that out of the way, it's time to place the actual magnets. So I start feeling along the back of that photo mat for where I placed those little metal circles so I could get a good idea of where the magnets need to be. So then I'm just going to put it down where I want it to kind of stick once the magnets are placed. And then I use that to kind of just get a good gauge. And then I open the flap and then I take one of the 2 little magnets I'm using and I'm just going to drop it down onto where the flat, see where it sticks, and then I'm going to use another small piece of red line tape to secure it in place. And then once we have that magnet placed, it's just doing the exact same thing on the other side. And once we have the magnet secured down, after this is just figuring out where we want to place the other photos and little embellishments about the page. So I'll play a bit of music while I place down the photos, a couple of captions, and chipboard that is also from the Carta Bella Christmas Farmhouse collection. And if you're interested in reading the journaling, I will put it in the description box below, and this time I'll remember to remove the typo from the first line. And that pretty much finishes day 2 in our December daily album for this year. Thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully I will see you for day 3. Thanks.